Welcome to Solosaurus, a podcast about one-player board and card games. My name is Brandon Waite.
And my name is Carter Mackey.
And this is episode 63, where we discuss a game about winemaking that could double as a coffin if you needed it to.
God, it's such a big box.
Vinhos from Vito Lacerda. So we will get to that review in just a little bit, but we are going to start the episode like we always do by talking about the news. And the news comes to us this week from tablefor1.me, which is a great website about solo games news and reviews. So if you haven't checked that out, definitely do that. That is tablefor1.me. And our first bit of news for this week is that Mind Clash Games, who made games like Anachrony and Tricarion and Cerebria, they are back on Kickstarter with their newest title, Perseverance Castaway Chronicles. Now, this is a game that I have heard about for, over a year at this point. They've been posting about it.
I don't know if I realized they've been kind of known about for that long.
Yeah, they've just teased it, for that long. David Turksey is part of it, or Turksey. Somebody else told me I was pronouncing his name wrong. I certainly am.
Sure.
Yeah. But he's been involved in the project as well. And here's the thing. Mind Clash games are sometimes a mess. They just have a very kitchen sink approach to game design that a lot of people really love. And I both love and don't.
Yeah, it can work really well, but also it can be a bit much sometimes.
Yeah. And I say that as somebody who has Anachrony on his shelf, and it's one of my favorite games ever. This is easily their biggest, most ambitious game to date.
It sounds like it.
And that is saying something if you've ever played any of their titles. So this is a game about a cruise ship that goes missing in like some kind of freak storm in the Bermuda Triangle or whatever. And this luxury cruise liner ends up crash landing on an island filled with dinosaurs. And so you have to survive and create like a little culture for yourself and trap dinosaurs, it looks like.
Yeah.
I mean, awesome theme.
It's awesome. So good, though.
Yeah, it's so good. And they do such a good job of making their games really thematic.
Yeah.
I'm super excited for that. But it is supposed to be quite long. So, there's something to keep in mind. And there's actually 2 games in the box.
I still don't really fully understand that.
I don't either, but my understanding is that this is Perseverance Castaway Chronicles Volume 1 and 2, and that means that you'll use the same board and a lot of the same components to play 2 different games with different mechanics that kind of overlap but are also very distinct. And it's not a legacy game, but there are some elements of Play Volume 1 would carry over and affect your game in Volume 2, and there's kind of an overarching story there, I guess. It sounds really cool.
Yeah.
I'm probably not going to back it.
Yeah.
Because I don't need another really big box Euro game, but seriously, it looks really great. The artwork is fantastic. The color palette, even just like lots of pinks and teals, and like it kind of jumps off the page at you. It looks awesome. So if you haven't checked out Perseverance Castaway Chronicles, you should, because it does have a solo mode in the box, and David Turksey was part of it. So, I mean, that's all you probably need to know. So go and check that out. That is Perseverance Castaway Chronicles from Mind Clash Games. Our second bit of news for this week is that Sanctum from Czech Games Edition has gotten some solo rules. So this is continuing Czech Games' trend over the last couple of months of releasing solo game rules for games they've already had out for a couple of years. They just did this for Adrenaline again recently. I think this is an awesome trend, especially right now. And it's one that, even if I never play these, I just really appreciate that publishers are thinking about this.
Yeah. People are still very much stuck at home.
They are. In fact, they should be, at least where we live, more than they actually are.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if you are at home and not sure what to do with yourself, definitely check this out, because Sanctum, if you're not familiar with it, is basically a Diablo clone. I mean, they do almost nothing to hide the fact that it's ripping off Diablo.
Yeah. It's kind of uncanny.
Yeah. There's a big Diablo face on the box, but the funniest thing to me is the characters have the red and blue orbs next to them, just like the interface in Diablo. I mean, it doesn't look bad. It looks fun.
Yeah.
But it's funny to me. So if you like Diablo, you like that theme and feel, definitely check this out. Sanctum from Czech Games Edition. You can find the free solo rules on their website. And the last bit of news for this episode is a big one for me. So Chip Theory Games, who make very few titles, and they just make them super well, they have announced that in 2021, Haplomachus, which is kind of their premier original game line, is getting a complete refresh next year.
And how excited about this are you?
Man, I'm so excited. If you've not listened to our review of Haplomachus Origins, you've got to, because that was a stomp of approval game, and I stand by that so hard. I really think that's a brilliant game design. But it was a little ugly. The neoprene mats and everything looked good, but some of the token art wasn't great, and I think it needs a refresh. Here's the coolest part of this entire story. So that original line is getting a refresh. That's great. But they also announced Haplomachus Victorum, which is a standalone, solo-only Haplomachus game with campaign play. I do not get that excited for many new games anymore because we played a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
I am beside myself with excitement over this.
So when is this game actually going to come out?
Well, I don't know. It says it's supposed to come to Kickstarter in 2021. So Oof. I know. I'm guessing 2022.
Ugh.
I know, but I'm not waiting to get excited.
Right, sure.
I'm going to get excited now, and then hopefully I'll still be excited when the game actually arrives in my hands. I suppose I will. But it looks great. So apparently, like, Mount Vesuvius has erupted, and Pluto, the god, is angry. And to keep Pluto from destroying the Earth further, I guess you have to compete in a series of trials, which, doesn't make that much sense.
No.
But I don't care, because I love the trial system from Haplomachus Origins, and I'm really hoping that that's what they're doing here. So, if you haven't checked that out yet, you can go and find it on Board Game Geek now. That is Haplomachus Victorum coming to Kickstarter in 2021. So that's all the news we've got for this episode. So we're going to move right now into the review, which is brought to us by Stone Valley Games. Listen, you've listened to this show before. You know we love Stone Valley Games. And not just because they sponsor this show, although, full disclosure, they do. They provide us with games to review from time to time. They're just an outstanding company. I recently got yet another Marvel Champions pack in the mail the other day because I pre-order all the packs through them. And it came with a nice long handwritten note from Eric, who owns the store. It's so nice. It's just got a great personal touch, but they also have great prices, professional service. They ship quickly. They're just the total package. So if you have not yet shopped with Stone Valley Games, you got to give it a shot. Check them out at stonevalleygames.com and let them know in the comments that you found the store through Solosaurus. They would love to hear that from you. All right, folks, let's get into the review, which is for Vinhos. Vinhos is a game that comes to us from designer Vital Lacerda and publisher Eagle Gryphon Games. It was originally released in 2010 with the original edition, which didn't look bad by any stretch of the imagination. A good-looking Euro game. But this new version that came out in 2016 is sexy.
I haven't actually seen the original game in production.
It's good. It's got lots of warm colors, lots of wood grain and that sort of thing that just, and it's that kind of older style illustration that looks, I don't know, not as stylized as this maybe.
Okay.
But this one has artwork from Ian O'Toole, which we'll get to in just a minute. Spoiler alert, it's amazing. And it plays 1 to 4 players out of the box. The original version, as I understand it, did not have a solo mode, but this deluxe version from Eagle Gryphon has one in the box. So, in Vinhos, which is the Portuguese word for wines, players are going to take on the role of winemakers in Portugal, which is one of the world's leading wine producers. And over 6 years of harvest, players are going to cultivate their vines, choose the best varieties, hire the best enologists, take part in trade fairs, and show your opponents that you are the best winemaker in the game. So the players with the most points at the end of the 6th year are the winners. Let's just start by talking about the components, because that's the thing that's going to jump out to people the most, I think. Carter, what do you think about the components for this one?
I mean, big, chunky cardboard pieces, like fantastic art, really solid production. I mean, the organizer could obviously be better, but it's still a great organizer compared to a lot of things.
Yeah.
It's not just a big cardboard trough.
No, I'm with you. I think, for my money, Eagle Gryphon Games makes the best looking Euro games period. I love Ian O'Toole's art. I love it so much. It's so clean, but it's evocative and bright in this case. Like it's really got a great, colorful, vivid color palette. And I don't know how to say this because I don't know art real good, but all of the art kind of takes on a wine label feel, a kind of clean, modern wine label aesthetic to it. I dig it. I think he just has done a brilliant job. And then, like you said, the components, man, the actual pieces in this game, I swear to you, Eagle Gryphon has made a deal with the devil that they're able to print on tokens as thick as they do.
Yeah, because sometimes cardboard tokens will still be kind of like light and feel a little cheap, but these are just solid, chunky cardboard.
Yeah, this company makes a strong argument for established companies using Kickstarter to launch their games, for like reprints especially, because I just don't know how you make a game like this apart from Kickstarter. I would build a house with these cardboard tokens. They're fantastic. The only thing that leaves a little something to be desired is definitely the insert. I don't understand Eagle Gryphon's approach to inserts. I really don't, because they kind of build them in their Kickstarter as a selling point, like, hey, we have a custom insert for you, but it doesn't come with any kind of guide for where to put the pieces. And so you have to look online to see what other people have done. And when you do that, you're going to be disappointed to find nobody knows what to do with it.
Right. There's some like just big holes that you can put things in. But yeah, I mean, it's not like they're not like fitted to the actual components necessarily.
No, and we know that can be done because we've seen it done over and over. Like we were just talking before we actually hit record here about, like remember the first time you opened up Lords of Waterdeep and what a wonderful experience that was. That can be done. We've seen it done plenty of times. Yep. The downside to having kind of an in-between solution like this is that I have not found any third-party sellers who make inserts for this game. Because it's like they look at the Kickstarter page or whatever and they think, there's already an insert in the game box and a good one, so we'll just leave it alone. If you're hearing this and you make inserts, help me, please. Like I'm writing it on the sand and creating signal fires. I need somebody to make a better insert for this game because it's not very functional. But that's a pretty minor complaint.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I mean, the production is stunning. I think one of the things that I appreciate about Eagle Gryphon and maybe Vito Lacerda more than the publisher is that same kind of elegant look is carried through into the rules, for me at least. I feel like the rules are well laid out, lots of visual examples, and this is one of the most streamlined Vito Lacerda rule sets, I think.
Yeah, I was actually expecting this game to be a little more chunky and complex with interlocking systems, but no, it was so much more just kind of streamlined Euro game. I thought the rules, not my favorite set of rules. I had a little bit of difficulty kind of getting going or started, but they have an interesting way of kind of like setting it up. But man, lots and lots of examples, which I always love.
Yeah, I thought that was really excellent. And I'm just impressed with the package as a whole. And if you don't know Vito Lacerda, you should know he's known for making very big, very heavy Euros. I was surprised to find I don't think this is nearly as heavy as like Lisboa is the only other one that I played. This didn't feel nearly as heavy to me.
No, not at all.
Both in terms of learning the rules and actually playing the game. And so I was delighted to find that as I went into it, I felt like I made it through the rules pretty quickly, and the player aid is really sharp.
Yes.
Excellent player aid for this game. So I think overall, pretty good. And we'll talk about the solitaire rules a little bit later, but they're also easy with very little overhead.
Mm-hmm.
So that is also a nice addition. As for the play of the game, the play is also just surprisingly clean. I was really expecting a heavy Euro, and maybe some people out there who are listening to this will argue that it is. I think I would put this as a mid-weight Euro game, just with a big box.
It's a big box. It's really tight gameplay. But as far as like the amount of actions you have and how like complex or interconnected those options are, nothing too crazy. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. I mean, it's mostly you're just kind of constrained and kind of making the most of things, but you're not having to go like 3 levels deep trying to consider like what are the repercussions of everything you're doing.
Yeah, and I found that to be really kind of freeing, honestly. Mm-hmm. Like I love Lisboa, and I want to play it basically all the time. But I do have a hard time, it takes a long time to set up. And then once you do set it up, it's going to burn your brain to the ground.
Mm-hmm.
There's lots of tough decisions to be made there. this is not, I mean, it's thinky. There's good decisions in here, but it's not going to tax you in nearly the same way, or at least it didn't for me.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And part of it, like you said, is the fact that there aren't that many actions. So maybe it's best just to give kind of a brief rundown of how this game works. I mean, it's a worker placement game at its heart.
Yeah.
But the central kind of difference in how it handles worker placement is there is a grid in the middle of the board, a 3x3 grid, where you'll be actually placing your workers. And the worker you can't just pick it up and move it anywhere. You have to move it to an adjacent space, whether orthogonally or diagonally. And that means that you are going to not have access to all of the squares at any one time unless you're in the middle.
Well, you have to pay money to skip a space.
Oh, that's right. You can do it, but it just costs you a little money. And money's super tight in this game. So you
really don't want to.
You don't want to. That's a good way to say it. Which is kind of nice. It's a nice middle ground to not be told you have to do this thing. So what you're going to be doing basically is moving this piece around the board, taking actions. And the actions are going to be things like, get another winery for your estate, or get a new estate to add. Is that right? No, get a new winery to add.
A vineyard
to
add to your estate, and then you will build a winery also to increase the value of the wine that you're producing off of that estate.
Or you can hire experts like enologists or farmers to come and take care of your place, and that'll raise the value of your wine as well. You can sell your wine that you've got to like either a local shop, or you can export it overseas for victory points. Or if you sell it locally, you can get money, which you're going to need to do several times during the course of the game. Or you can hire like wine experts to come and help you out. So these are people that are going to give you kind of a special power that you can use during the course of the game, or they can help you to do well in the upcoming wine fair, which is one of the main ways where you get points in the game. I would say like getting points is a mixture of winning wine fairs and getting points according to these kind of like special in-game tiles that you'll get a chance to draft a little bit later in the game. And exporting your stuff. Like those are kind of the main three. So you have spaces on the board that let you do that. Sell wines, enter it in the wine fair. And I think one of the things that was surprising to me about this is just what a simple, small set of actions it is.
Yeah, you're not really having to consider too much. It's kind of like, do you want to expand your vineyards? And it's in really simple ways. I mean, the easy comparison is viticulture, where, you have like, do you get trellises or, do all these different like little like building upgrades? It's like, do you want a cellar on this estate? Yes or no? Do you want to do this? Do you want to add people to it? And they're really straightforward in how they increase they just increase the value of the wine. It's just a straight summative action. It doesn't modify how your actions work or give like weird subtle little changes to build a bigger strategy. It's like, do I want really high value wine in these different places or not?
Yeah, and I really like that. I don't know how many people out there have thought about this, but over the years, I've come to realize one of the things that frustrates me about worker placement games is the feeling that I'm spending 2 or 3 turns taking actions to get resources. Like I need 2 corn and 3 clay or whatever. And then on the 3rd or 4th turn, I'll be able to build a thing that will get me points and make me feel like I'm making progress. There's something frustrating to me about spending 2/3 of the game just collecting things so that I can do something with it. I like that the worker placement spots are just actions. They are things that you can do. Like I move here and I can sell my wine. I move here and I buy an estate, and there's just an immediacy to it. Like I don't need to collect 10 wood before I can build a new winery on my estate, or I don't need to pay, 4 different kinds of resources to hire a farmer to come in. I just do the thing. And money is really your only resource.
Right.
You've got wine tokens that are on your board, but you don't collect a bunch of things. And I think it's like a marriage of action selection and worker placement in that way. Like you get in each other's way like a worker placement game, but the things you're doing are actions that have space for you to do maybe multiple things and make interesting decisions, not just put my piece here and I grab some grapes. I think I like that in a Euro game more than I thought.
Yeah, I mean, just like you said, it's very streamlined and simplistic. I mean, I still like games where you would gather resources and you're kind of building an engine or transforming it for like, big plays, but there's something about the simplicity of, do I have money? Like, okay, well, let me try to get more money, or, just I'm going to take this action and do the thing.
Yeah, I think that works really well. And with that then comes a great sense of growth. What's really neat is your player board, your individual player board, is kind of this washed out like outline of a series of wine estates. And it's pretty artwork, but it's subdued. It's intentionally subdued. And whenever you get a tile that has a new vineyard or you get a new cellar that you put on the board, it's full of color. Over time, your board is just starting to really pop. And I like that visual progression. And I also like that it doesn't feel like it takes that long before it starts to happen because it uses this system, which is really, really nice. So that core system I really like. And the kind of tension that ends up creating is you are going to automatically every round create wine. You're going to look at each of your states. You're going to look at, okay, what's the weather like for this year? That's going to add some value to your wine or decrease it if it's a bad year weather-wise. How many wineries do I have there? How many vineyards? How many enologists and farmers? And all those are going to add like +1 or +2 to the value of your wine. And then at the end of the year, you just automatically produce it, which is great.
Yeah.
You've put everything in place and then Mother Nature does its work, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're going to get a little token with that number on it. And it's going to go at the bottom of your board into a cellar if you've got one, or it just sits there like in, I don't know, stainless steel tanks or something. And you're going to be able to use that wine in a number of different ways. And that's one of the core tensions of the game is you don't have that much wine. You kind of want to hang on to it if you can, because the longer you let it sit every game round, it's going to increase in value just from sitting in your cellar. But if you let it sit around too long, it's going to go bad.
Right.
And there are only 6 turns in the game. So if you want high value wine, you really need to make high value wine to begin with. Mm-hmm. And then let it sit for most of the game. Oof.
Yeah, it's interesting because I was surprised at kind of what, I guess, the main choice or decision in the game is. Like you said, like wine production is like relatively automatic. You can try to make your wine have a higher value, but it's that idea of like, what am I doing with my wine? It's, like you said, getting victory points for it, selling it for money, which you desperately need, or, sending it to the wine fair, which has this whole like thing of just like, the importance of building reputation for yourself, how that earns you victory points throughout the game, giving you kind of the ability to do special powers, during this wine fair stage. I mean, it's an interesting focus on the game where it's just like the natural thing. I feel like in a worker placement wine game is to only focus on wine production, not the like second step.
Yeah. And this game, I think, focuses equally maybe on those two things. And I really like that. Mm-hmm. The tension is like, you always need money. Like partly because you're spending it to buy these vineyard upgrade or these estate upgrades all the time. So you need more money for that. But also during the worker placement portion, if you're going to be placing your worker like in a solo game, if you're going to be placing it anywhere where the AI player has been on the board, it's going to cost you money. Mm-hmm. So that drains your coffers very quickly. And then on top of that, you just need money to do a lot of things. So there's that tension of like, well, I really need money. But also, I really need to like think about what I'm going to enter into the wine fair because like you were saying, there's kind of a press your luck element to the wine fair thing. This year, you can see on these little tiles that you draw at the top of the board, here's what the weather's like for this year. And here's what each of these different wine experts or judges at the wine fair are looking for in a wine. It'll tell you like they're really into reds this year or they're really into whites. They want a value wine of like 8 or higher and they want it to be like they're all very easy things to judge based on what you've got on your board. Mm-hmm. But if you see that the conditions are perfect for you to enter it, like now's the time to do it. You can enter it in early if you want because you've got, 4 actions before the next wine fair most of the time.
Right.
You can enter it in early and know for sure you've got it locked in. You've got a good value wine that's probably going to work out and help you win the wine fair. But let's say we're playing this game multiplayer. Earlier you enter a wine, the easier it is for your opponents to see what they need to beat. That's problematic.
Right.
And even in a solo game where that's not the case, you also just have a lot of other crap you want to do on your turn.
Right.
And so it's like there's never a good time to go enter the wine fair.
No. Yeah. It's like waiting to the last minute, you might be kind of caught in a bad position. But, if you release it early, that's like an extra action you're using just to pre-release and do a press release for your wine.
Yeah. And the other benefit to like going early is, like you said, there's a different special ability or, benefit associated with each spot. You get to pick which benefit you get if you go early.
Right.
or you're stuck with nothing if you go late. I think that's really clever. I really like that as a way of generating points in the game, as opposed to like, okay, how many buildings did I build? What are the point values of each of those buildings? I don't know. There's more theme to it, which I really dig. And then, then there's also like that export market where you can sell your wine internationally. That's a big deal because that takes some really high value wine, but you can score a ton of points from it.
Right. In a couple of different ways through it. But yeah, it is. I mean, a lot of points come from that. And like points they're not thrown around willy-nilly in my mind. Like you really have to be intentional about trying to earn points and not developing these great immaculate wine estates, because that's not what wins you the game.
No, even though it's the most satisfying thing to do. It's like playing Dominion, where you just want to keep making your deck better and better, but that's not how you're going to win.
No.
You actually need to make it worse to win. So I think the things that stick out to me is that there's so much theme here. There's so few actions. And then what you get at the end is a game of combos and growth. So like when you buy a vineyard, you look at this left half of the board where you have all these different regions where you can buy vineyards from. And each one of those vineyards gives you a special kind of bonus just for buying a vineyard from there. You might get a free cellar, or you might get an automatic, +2 at the next wine fair just for having wine from that region. And every time you buy a vineyard from that region, you also increase that region's renown, which is really cool because that, functionally is you put cubes on the board and I can spend those from the board, soak in other players to increase the value of my wine.
Relying on the reputation and prestige of a region instead of just based on the quality of the wine.
I love that. And I love thematically that you can do that too much to the point where nobody cares that you laud that this wine is from this particular region.
Yeah.
Like they've heard it all before.
Right. Yeah.
I think that's super cool. I really, really love that idea. And, I like that you do well in the wine fair and you get barrels, which are the super limited resource that you need to sell your wine. It just feels like it does a good job of giving you multiple things, not just points, but like trying to give you a little boost somewhere else as well. So it gives the game a good pace. Overall, I've not played this multiplayer, but I imagine it would be a very satisfying multiplayer experience. But as a solo game, I also found it to be really pretty solid. Like the AI system for this game is surprisingly simple for such a big box.
It is pretty simple. I would say still a little clunky. I understand, but yeah, it's definitely not complex.
No, it's not. Basically, what you're going to do is just pull a card from a small deck to see what your AI opponent does on their turn. And the problem with this system is, like, obviously there's the randomness of just pulling the card. Okay, that's part of it, but that doesn't really bother me that much because I like the simplicity of it. The thing that bothers me is each one of their actions. It's not like other worker placement games where you just place a die or a piece on that action and it's blocked from you. You actually have to do some things for them. And it's hard to remember what you need to do for each action because the iconography is not super clear to me about what needs to be done. And maybe that would happen with more and more plays. I don't know. But I kept finding myself going back to the rule book to be like, what am I supposed to do for him on this action again? And that's where the clunkiness comes in.
Well, I mean, there's the clunkiness of that, the clunkiness of you have a deck of 9 cards that just have 1 through 9 on it. And that's just to act as a randomizer for how the AI chooses different things. And I get it. I mean, it's fine. It's not the worst system ever. It's a little clunky in the sense that like you will have to constantly, every time you pull 2 cards from it, well, then you need to put those cards away and reshuffle it for the next time that it asks you for 2 cards.
Yeah.
Or whatever. And so it's a lot of just like, it's a small deck, it's just 9 cards, but it's still just a lot of like reshuffling basically every time on the AI's turn. It's fine. There's nothing that comes to the top of my head, so maybe there isn't a better solution, but I feel like there could have been a way to add the randomization in a satisfying way.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I mean, the other thing I would say is that it's not that difficult to manage once you get the hang of it.
No,
which is nice. And the rest of the game is satisfying enough that I think it's a good solo experience. Okay. But I do think it's a little easy to beat Lacerda, the AI player. I kind of hammered him.
Yeah.
And it's a bit of a bummer to me because I want to do well in a Euro game, right? I want to win the game, but I didn't feel like I was playing optimally my first couple of games, and I was still winning handily. So there's that. Now, they do a neat thing where they also implement an Accolades system. So you don't just win by beating the AI by points. You win if you have done the best in a number of other categories in the game.
Right.
Which is cool.
Yeah, it's cool. And like it gives you a little ranking system of how many accolades you got determines like how good of a job you did.
Sure. But basically it becomes like a beat your own score thing.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a win condition and a beat your own score. And I'm not sure that either one of them is as compelling as I want them to be. Like when we played Lisboa solo, I had this sense throughout the game that like I'm playing to what I want to do, but I also have to actively play against Lacerda if I want to win.
Mm-hmm. And
that when I did win, I fought for it.
Yes.
And I did win that game eventually, but it took a while. And it was challenging, and I'm never going to steamroll that game. I kind of wish this had a little bit of that.
I mean, I will say in the beginning, the AI starts with a huge point lead, which feels kind of bad in the beginning.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, you really start closing that gap because you can, I feel like, pretty easily beat the AI at the wine fair over and over again if you're just trying to. And so I didn't really find it challenging. I don't know that there's really a good way to make the AI more challenging based on this like kind of simplistic like, setup.
No, I don't think so either. I don't think that's going to be a big problem for a lot of people. I think maybe a bigger problem for some people is going to be that thing that you mentioned, the AI getting such a strong lead. You can feel like you're getting hammered for a while yourself and you're not sure how you would come back. I almost actually quit my first game and restarted it because I thought I was just so far behind that, maybe it would be better if I just started from scratch once I kind of grokked things a little better. But I ended up coming back and beating them handily. So it has a weird pace.
Yeah.
Scoring wise, you score almost all of your points in the second half of your game. All that to say, though, I think the play of the game is quite interesting and the solo mode is really solid. And I think that now's maybe a good time for us to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly for this game.
Yeah.
So the good for me, gorgeous game.
Yeah. It's a really pretty game. It's just, when you're playing a game that has really high quality components and production, it's just enjoyable to actually play.
It is. And on top of that, it's thematic. It's a thematic Euro, and it's a cool theme for me.
Yeah.
I really, really like it a lot. And I just can't say enough good things about Vito Lacerda's use of theme.
Mm-hmm.
He does such a great job of creating mechanically interesting games with good themes and integrating them tightly. Mind Clash is doing the same thing. It feels more and more like the dry Euro has no place because it can be done this way.
Yeah.
So really, really happy with that for me. I feel like the game has a solid set of core systems and it's a good first Lacerda game. It might be the best first Lacerda game. I haven't played all of his.
What Kanban? What else is there?
I don't think it's going to be Kanban.
No, well, yeah, clearly not. I'm just listing.
Yeah. So he's done Kanban, Vinhos, Lisboa, The Gallerist, On Mars, and Escape Plan, which looks very different from some of his others.
Right.
You know about this one?
No, I'm not.
It's all the players have just robbed a bank together, and they're trying to escape the city and get away from the cops, but they need a certain amount of money in their briefcase before they get out. I think it's a Euro, but it has a getaway theme.
Interesting.
How cool is that?
Yeah, that's a great thing.
He does themes so well. Even having not played, I've played The Gallerist and Lisboa and this. So I guess this is my third one now. I think this is easily the most approachable.
It's really not too bad. It's just a good kind of like medium light Euro game in my mind.
Yeah. And so, solid, interesting, cohesive set of mechanics. It does feel like one of his earlier games in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
It just that, Lisboa has so many big, interesting, complex things going on. This feels like a much more streamlined kind of, I don't want to say a beginner's game or anything like that, but he's just changed as a designer.
Yeah.
But really, really solid core system. And I kind of like, even though it's not as compelling as I would want it to be, I like the idea of the Accolades System with the solo AI.
Yeah, it's an interesting way to do it. And it's, the way the points are awarded isn't just like 1 point across the board. Some things are worth more points than others.
Yeah, I like that quite a bit. So those are all things that are good for me. Is there anything else that you would add to that list?
Yeah, I think that's probably all in the good category for me.
I'm mostly going to have things in the good category for this game. My only bad things that I would say, number one, the insert, I wish was better or worse.
Yeah.
Like one of the two, so I could get a good insert for this game, even if I had to order one third party. It's just kind of nothing milquetoast. And then I feel like the game I put down in my notes feels a little long, but I think I mean the opposite of that. It feels very tight to me, like maybe a little too tight.
Yeah, it's pretty tight. I mean, it comes pretty fast. I kind of like the pacing of it. I think if it lasted any longer, it would maybe feel like a little too long because there's not as much going on.
Yeah.
I mean, I think for me in the bad category, I would have to probably put replayability.
That's true.
I mean, the only thing you're really varying is what regions, like from a solo standpoint, what regions you're not going to be playing with, and then also what the weather is going to be like for the year, and like consequently like what the wine experts are looking for, or the magnates, or whatever they're called. And so yeah, it's not super compelling, and it's not really going to change your gameplay much, or like give you kind of a unique problem to solve as far as going through the game. You're kind of doing the same thing no matter what.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think you would also have to kind of actively set out to do a different strategy each game because of that. You know, it's not like, I really value games that will give you a hand of cards at the beginning, like Agricola style or Feast for Odin or something like that. Something that kind of forces you, either that or a player power, to change your play style. And this doesn't have that kind of prompt the way I would want. But I mean, Lisboa is kind of the same way, but it does have those card draws, right? So that changed it up significantly. Without a card system, it's really on you to play the game differently. So that is kind of a bummer.
Yeah.
But is there anything else you would put into the bad category?
I think that's it for me.
Yeah, I think that's it for me too. I think that takes us now to ugly, and I don't have anything ugly to say about this game.
No.
There's nothing ugly about it. It's kind of a modern classic for a reason. I mean, I think it's considered a classic among Eurogame fans. It's just a really, really well done game that's thematic with a cool theme. Now, as far as the stamp of approval for this game, you know, if you're not familiar with our podcast, the stamp of approval is an award that we give very rarely to games that both of us love and that we would recommend even if you only ever play it solo. Where are you at on the stamp of approval for this game?
I mean, I have not played this game multiplayer, but I just have a hard time recommending this for solo play only as the only way to experience it, because there's obviously the benefit of having a simplistic AI opponent, which just makes it easier to go through. But it didn't really, like, it was like a human opponent. They were just kind of doing things randomly that didn't really make sense. I think, like, in one game, the, like, very first action the AI took was selling a bunch of wine, which is nonsense because you wouldn't have any. So, I mean, mechanically, like, for the AI is fine. But, you know, it's just, it doesn't give you that feeling of playing another human.
That's a good point. And that really, I think multiplayer would fix a lot of the replayability issues with this game.
Yeah.
Because so much of what you do is a response to the board state. Yeah, that's true. I think that might be a bigger deal than I thought. Yeah, that's my main issue, is replayability and the AI system not being quite as compelling as I would want it to be. I kind of wish David Turksey or somebody would come in here and redo it and just give it like a little more depth.
Right, yeah.
I think it's a really good game. I really do. And Vito Lacerda is he's one of my favorites at this point. I want to play pretty much everything he's done. Escape Plan is now very high on my list of games to play.
Yeah.
But this one, I really went into it thinking that it might be my favorite game from him. As I love the theme that much.
Right.
But Lisboa is heads and shoulders better than this for solo play, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of walk away feeling the same way.
Yeah, it's a good game, but I worry about replayability, and I just want the AI system to be a little better. So I think this is going to be a game I really like, and a game that I think solo players will enjoy if they also get a chance to play it multiplayer to get kind of the fuller experience. But it's not one that I would recommend from the stamp of approval, and probably you wouldn't either.
No.
But again, just because a game doesn't get the stomp doesn't mean it's not good. We've played a lot of good games that didn't get the stomp. So yeah, that's where we're going to land for this episode, folks. I hope you enjoyed this review for Vinhos. If you haven't yet, you should check it out, and you should check it out at stonevalleygames.com, because last I checked, they have it, because that's where we got this copy. It was very nice of them to send it our way. If you haven't yet, you could go to dicetower.com to learn more about other podcasts in the Dice Tower network. There are shows that cover board games from every conceivable angle, so go on there and learn more about those. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We post sometimes about games. I don't like social media very much, so I don't post as much as a podcaster probably should. But if I haven't done it yet, I will be posting soon pictures of models I've been painting. That's kind of solo board gaming.
Yeah. It's a solo thing.
It is. It's a very solo activity. I should also chronicle all the solo hours I spend prepping for D&D. For our
Right, yeah.
Yeah, so it's you can go on there and follow us and see what we're into and what we're playing. You can also go onto Board Game Geek and let us know that you like one of our micro badges. They only cost 8 geek gold, and they're a really rad yellow and purple dinosaur. I mean, you want one, right?
You know you want one.
You want one. There are 225 of us as of this recording who have this little yellow and purple dinosaur on our profile. So join the throngs, spread the good word about Solosaurus, and I'll spot you the Geek Gold for that if you don't have it already. All right, folks, I think that's all we've got for this episode. Until next time, my name is Brandon Waite.
And my name is Carter Mackey.
And this is Solosaurus.